Hello and welcome. I'm Naomi, and today I'm speaking to you from a breathtaking beach resort in Thailand. The white sand stretches endlessly before me, and the sea sparkles under the golden sunlight. There's something incredibly peaceful about this place, the way the breeze carries the scent of salt water, the way time seems to stand still for a moment. Today, I want to share with you a glimpse into the peaceful rhythm of life here, and how this place has allowed me to reconnect with myself. Bangkok had been everything I'd imagined and more, its vibrant streets filled with color, life, and a sense of endless possibility that was both energizing and overwhelming at times. I wandered through its busy markets, tasting the sharp, spicy flavors of street food, while golden temples shimmered in the distance, their spires reaching into the bright blue sky. For days, I was swept up in the pulse of the city, the constant movement, the noise, the people, all of it intoxicating in its own way. But as much as I loved the energy of Bangkok, a part of me longed for a change of pace, for a place where the world might feel a little more still. I didn't want to leave the city behind completely. I was happy there, but I craved a different kind of beauty, something quieter and more expansive. So after a few days in Bangkok, I decided to take a short trip to the coast, to a beach I had only heard about from a local friend, a place where the sea stretched endlessly and the world seemed to slow down. The drive out of the city felt like a gradual release. The tall buildings and crowded streets gave way to open fields and distant hills, the air becoming fresher with each passing mile. It was as if the constant hum of the city was fading, replaced by the soft, rhythmic sounds of nature. By the time I reached the beach, the sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the water, and I felt an immediate sense of calm wash over me. I stepped out of the car and onto the sand, letting my feet sink into the warmth of it, the breeze carrying the familiar scent of salt and the sea. The sound of the waves was soft, rhythmic, like a steady heartbeat, and I could feel the tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying start to ease from my shoulders. I stood there for a moment, just breathing in the sea air, the sun warming my skin, and let myself settle into the quietness of this place. The contrast with the energy of Bangkok was striking. In the city, everything had felt so immediate, so urgent, as if every moment demanded my attention. But here, time seemed to stretch out before me, as vast and open as the ocean itself. I began to walk along the shoreline, my feet sinking into the warm sand with each step, and as I did, I noticed a group of local women working near the water's edge. They moved with an ease and grace that seemed almost effortless, their bodies swaying gently as they carried baskets of fruit or set up chairs for the tourists. There was no rush in their movements, no urgency in their gestures, just a quiet rhythm that matched the waves rolling onto the shore. I watched them for a while, captivated by their calm presence and the simple beauty of their work. As I watched the women move, I couldn't help but think of the women I see every day in Tokyo. In Tokyo, everything feels like a race, women hurrying through crowded train stations, their bags heavy with laptops and paperwork, their eyes focused straight ahead. There's a sense of purpose in everything we do, a drive to succeed, to accomplish, to keep moving forward, even when exhaustion sets in. But here, on this beach, the work felt different. The women weren't moving any less or working any less hard, but there was a softness to their labor, a rhythm that felt more connected to the earth, to the natural world around them. It was like they were part of this landscape, as natural as the sea itself. In Tokyo, we are often disconnected from the world around us. Our focus is on deadlines, meetings, and goals. Important, of course, but sometimes we forget to look up, to breathe, to feel the sun on our skin. Here, these women worked with the sun, with the breeze, with the steady rhythm of the ocean beside them. It wasn't that one way of life was better than the other. Both had their beauty. But standing there, I realized how much I had forgotten to slow down, to connect with the world around me. As I watched the women move gracefully across the sand, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. Their work wasn't rushed or frantic. It had a rhythm that matched the sound of the waves crashing softly against the shore. In contrast, life in Tokyo was always fast. Women in the city moved quickly, their heels clicking sharply on the pavement, their eyes focused straight ahead. There was no time to slow down, no space to breathe. Always a sense of urgency. But here, under the wide open sky, everything felt different. The sun was warm against my skin, the wind carrying the scent of salt and sun. I could feel my shoulders begin to relax, the tension melting away. I closed my eyes and let the sounds of the ocean fill me. In Tokyo, every moment was about productivity. Meetings, deadlines, expectations. There was always something to prove. But standing on this beach, I realized how different it could be. The women here, working in the sun, seemed so connected to the world around them. They weren't rushing from one task to the next. Instead, they moved in harmony with the world around them. A quiet rhythm. A connection. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching, breathing, feeling the difference between my life in Tokyo and the pace of this beach. Not one better than the other. Just different. As I continued my walk along the beach, I noticed one of the women working near the shoreline, setting up a few chairs for the tourists. She had a graceful, natural ease about her, her movements fluid, her posture relaxed, yet there was an unmistakable strength in the way she carried herself. Her skin glowed in the sunlight, a deep, healthy tan that spoke of days spent outdoors. She exuded an air of calm confidence, as if she were in perfect harmony with the world around her. As I approached her, I caught the subtle scent of coconut and fresh sea air. She glanced up and smiled, her eyes warm and inviting. "Hello," I said, a little unsure if I was interrupting her work. "Hello," she replied, her voice soft, carrying the rhythm of the sea itself. I asked her if the beach was always this peaceful, expecting her to confirm that this was just another quiet day. But she laughed gently, a sound as natural as the breeze, and told me, "Yes, it is always like this. This is why I love it here." There was something intoxicating about the way she spoke, the rhythm of her words, the softness of her smile. It was as if every movement, every gesture, was part of a larger, more harmonious dance. As we talked, I found myself drawn to her in a way I couldn't quite explain. She radiated health and vitality, her skin glowing under the sun, her hair catching the light as it danced with the breeze. There was something sensual about her, an effortless kind of beauty, not forced or overly polished, but raw, natural, and undeniable. Her presence was magnetic, as if the very air around her hummed with energy. I asked her how long she had worked on the beach. "Many years," she said, glancing out at the sea. "The sea keeps me healthy. It gives me everything I need." There was a deep connection in her words, a sense that she was as much a part of this place as the waves and the sand. As she spoke, I couldn't help but compare her to the women I knew in Tokyo. The women back home moved with purpose, always rushing from one thing to the next. There was a different kind of beauty in that, a sharpness, an intensity. But here, with this woman, the beauty was softer, more relaxed, yet just as powerful. She didn't need to prove anything. She simply was. As I stepped into the changing room, I pulled out my swimsuit from my bag, the fabric cool against my fingers. I hadn't worn it in a while. Tokyo didn't offer many chances to relax by the beach, and life had been too busy lately. I slipped it on, adjusting the straps, and stood for a moment in front of the small mirror. My body. I stared at my reflection, my eyes tracing the lines of my figure. At 28, I was still proud of my toned legs and slender waist. Years of yoga and running had kept me fit. But my chest. It was always the one thing I couldn't quite feel comfortable about. Smaller than I wished. I tugged at the swimsuit, trying to adjust the fit, but it didn't change anything. I glanced around the changing area and couldn't help but think about the women I'd seen earlier on the beach. Young, beautiful. Their skin glowing, their bodies effortlessly perfect in their bikinis. They seemed so carefree, so comfortable in their own skin. I looked at myself again. There was a part of me that envied them. They were younger, probably just entering their 20s, with smooth skin and bright smiles. In contrast, I felt like I had to work harder to maintain what I had. The years of running and yoga weren't enough to completely silence that little voice in the back of my head, the one that reminded me that time was moving forward. I sighed and ran a hand through my hair, pulling it up into a loose bun. It wasn't that I didn't like my body. I was proud of the strength it gave me, the endurance, the flexibility. But there was still that part of me that couldn't help but compare. Compare myself to the women around me, women younger and seemingly more confident in their beauty. I stepped out of the changing room and onto the warm sand, the sun immediately warming my skin. As I walked toward the water, I tried to let go of those insecurities. I wanted to be like the women I had seen, carefree and confident. But I realized that confidence wasn't something that came from looking a certain way. It came from accepting myself, flaws and all. I sat down at a small cafe by the beach, the sun casting a golden glow over everything. The air was warm, but a soft breeze off the ocean kept it from feeling too heavy. I ordered a cold beer, craving something refreshing after the heat of the day. When the glass arrived, condensation beaded along its surface, and I could almost taste the coolness before it even touched my lips. I took a sip, the beer icy and refreshing, the bitterness grounding me in the moment. I watched as a few local women moved about the cafe, carrying trays of drinks and food with an ease that seemed almost effortless. Their skin was tanned, their faces relaxed, smiling as they worked. They moved with a kind of grace, not in a rush but not slowing down either. Everything about them seemed in sync with the rhythm of the beach, the waves, the wind, the slow, steady pace of life here. I couldn't help but compare it to my life in Tokyo. In the city, everything was rushed. We moved quickly through crowded train stations, always checking our phones for the next email, the next meeting. There was always something that needed to be done, always something that demanded our attention. Even when we weren't at work, the pressure never seemed to leave. I took another sip of beer, feeling the cool liquid slide down my throat. Here, everything felt different. The women here, working in the cafe, didn't seem burdened by the same kind of pressure. Their work was physical, yes, but they seemed to carry it with an ease, with a sense of balance that I rarely felt in my own life. In Tokyo, I felt like I was always pushing myself. Pushing to meet deadlines, to stay ahead, to prove myself. There was a sense of accomplishment in it, but there was also exhaustion. Here, watching these women work, I realized that there was a different way to approach life. A way that wasn't about constant striving, but about moving with the flow of the world around you. I took another long drink of beer, the cool bitterness a reminder to stay present. I didn't need to become like them. But I realized there was something I could learn from the way they lived. A kind of balance. A kind of peace. As I sat there, sipping my beer, I couldn't help but think about the women I had seen that day on the beach. There was something about them, something that went beyond beauty. It wasn't just their youthful looks or their glowing, tanned skin. It was something deeper, something almost intangible. A kind of femininity that they seemed to carry effortlessly. It wasn't the polished, carefully curated beauty you often see in magazines. No, their beauty was more raw, more natural. It came from the way they moved, the way they carried themselves with such ease and confidence. There was a sensuality to it, an allure that wasn't forced, but simply existed. I noticed it in the way they walked, their hips swaying gently with each step, as if they were in perfect sync with the rhythm of the earth beneath them. Their movements were graceful, fluid, but there was also a quiet strength in them. It was as if their bodies knew exactly how to move, without a second thought, as if they were completely in tune with themselves. And then there was their scent. It wasn't something I could easily describe. It wasn't the artificial sweetness of perfume or body lotion. It was more subtle, more natural. A mix of salt water, sun, and perhaps a hint of coconut. It was a scent that seemed to belong to the earth, to the sea. As I sat there, watching them move around the cafe, I realized how much of their femininity came from this effortless sensuality. It wasn't something they were trying to project. It was just there, part of who they were. There was an undeniable sensuality in the way they laughed, the way they tilted their heads when they spoke. It was subtle, but powerful. I envied it, in a way. Not because I didn't have my own kind of beauty, but because theirs felt so effortless. They didn't seem to be working for it. It was simply part of them. In Tokyo, everything felt more deliberate. The way we dressed, the way we carried ourselves. It was always a bit of a performance, an effort to look polished, put together. But here, with these women, I saw a different kind of beauty. A beauty that wasn't about perfection, but about being fully in the moment, fully in their bodies. After finishing my beer, I suddenly realized how hungry I was. The heat and the ocean breeze had distracted me, but now my stomach growled, reminding me that it had been hours since I last ate. I wandered over to a small beachfront restaurant, its open-air setup inviting me in with the smell of grilled seafood and fresh herbs. I took a seat at a table overlooking the ocean and ordered something light, a fresh salad and a plate of grilled shrimp. As I waited for my meal, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, the soft sound of the waves filling the background. A few moments later, a woman approached the table next to mine, her white bikini catching my eye. She had strikingly fair skin, almost glowing in contrast to her dark hair, which was tied up in a loose bun. Her face was delicately featured, with high cheekbones and almond-shaped eyes that seemed to sparkle under the sun. Her long arms and legs were toned, her figure elegant, and the white bikini fit her perfectly. She caught my eye and smiled, her expression warm and approachable. "Are you traveling alone?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic. I nodded, feeling a sudden sense of connection. "Yeah, I'm taking a short break from work in Tokyo," I replied. She smiled, her almond eyes lighting up with understanding. "I'm from Seoul," she said. I needed to get away for a bit too. Life in this city can be a lot. I nodded again, fully understanding what she meant. We both sat there for a moment, soaking in the peacefulness of the beach, so different from the bustling cities we had come from. She introduced herself as Ji Yeon, and we started talking more freely. "I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel like I'm suffocating in Seoul," she said with a sigh. "The pace, the pressure to always be perfect, it gets exhausting." I nodded in agreement. "It's the same in Tokyo," I said. "There's always this constant need to prove yourself to be better, faster, stronger." Jaeyeon smiled sympathetically. "Exactly. That's why I'm here. I needed to step away from it all for a while, just to breathe." I looked at her, admiring how the sun seemed to make her skin almost glow. There was a certain grace about her, her long limbs, her smooth porcelain-like skin, and the way she carried herself with effortless elegance. She seemed so at ease, sitting there in her white bikini, her legs stretched out in front of her. We talked for a while, sharing stories of our respective cities, the demands of work, and the pressure to maintain a certain image. but beneath the surface I couldn't help but admire Ji-yeon. There was a quiet confidence about her, a kind of natural beauty that didn't seem to require any effort. She wasn't just beautiful. She was self-assured, comfortable in her own skin, something I sometimes struggled with. As our food arrived, we laughed and continued talking, two women from different cities but sharing a similar journey. For a moment, sitting there, under the warm sun with the sound of the ocean behind us, I felt a sense of connection I hadn't expected to find. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the beach, I realized how much time had passed since I first sat down at the cafe. The conversation with Ji-yeon had been easy, natural, and as I listened to her talk about her life in Seoul, I couldn't help but see the parallels with my own. We were both running, both chasing something, constantly pushing ourselves to meet expectations our own and those of others. But here, in this peaceful place, I felt the weight of all that slowly began to lift. It wasn't just the beauty of the beach or the warmth of the sun. It was the simplicity of it all, the way life here moved at its own pace, the way people seemed so connected to the world around them. I thought about the women I had seen that day, moving gracefully across the sand, their bodies tanned and toned from years spent under the sun. There was a confidence in their movements, but it was different from the kind I was used to in Tokyo. It wasn't about success or achievement. It was about being present, being comfortable in their own skin. Jae-yeon smiled at me as she took a sip of her drink. "You know," she said, "I thought coming here would just be a break, but it's starting to feel like more than that. Like I'm remembering how to just be." I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "I feel the same," I said. Being here, away from all the noise, all the pressure, it's like I'm remembering a part of myself I haven't thought about in a long time. The conversation lulled into a comfortable silence, and we both stared out at the ocean, the waves lapping gently at the shore. I felt a deep sense of gratitude for this place, for this moment, for the clarity it had given me. I hadn't realized how much I needed this time away. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the water, I realized it was time to go. Not just from the cafe, but from this place, this escape. I had come here searching for something, a break from the intensity of Tokyo, but I was leaving with something much more valuable. "I think it's time for me to head back," I said to Ji-yeon, who nodded knowingly. "Yeah, me too," she replied, smiling warmly. We exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch, but there was a sense that we had already shared something meaningful. As I walked back along the beach, the sand cool under my feet, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I wasn't leaving behind the demands of Tokyo. I wasn't giving up on my goals. But I was bringing something new with me. A sense of balance. A reminder to slow down, to breathe, to reconnect with myself when the world around me became too much. As the lights of the resort twinkled in the distance, I smiled to myself. I had found what I didn't even know I was looking for.